Hi everyone. Today I felt inspired to share with you some disconnect that I've recently experienced in a relationship with someone, which has triggered and touched upon a very tender need of mine. And just to briefly define tender needs, so it's any need where we do not have a very confident or secure relationship with, which results in us to easily perceive threat around this need or makes us prone to reactivity around this need. And in this case, the tender need was that of belonging. And so this person did a series of things that had some painful impact on me. And what I want to share about today is really the judgment that I found myself in as a result of this. I really found myself in some deep judgment towards this person and what they did. And I was in this judgment for much longer than I would have liked and than felt pleasant, and we recognize judgment through thoughts and expressions such as they such a this or such a that, or how could they do this, or they should have this, or they should have done that, or known better, and all these labels that we project on the other person. And I found myself, I couldn't shake off this judgment. And so over the past 2 days, after doing some processing and also having a call with a dear friend and mentor of mine who reminded me of some sound judgment practice, such as, just naming the judgment to oneself as it arises, or receiving some empathy and skilled listening from someone that really has the capacity to attune and really hold that space and offer that empathy, that empathic presence. Also just reminding oneself that when the other person, they did that tragic action that had that painful or negative impact, that in that moment they themselves were most likely suffering. In that moment they forgot who they are. In that moment they lost access to their skill or their compassion, or maybe they never even had the compassion or the skill to show up any differently. And these are all things that I knew and intellectually knew and understood and even practiced over these past few days, but yet the stickiness of the judgment still had a grip on me. And I think that had to do with just the intensity of the pain, given that this was such a tender need of mine. And so over the past 2 days, I've really just been sitting with this and processing it. And also I had to remind myself that letting go of the judgment is not me approving or condoning what the other person did. Letting go of judgment is essentially me getting unstuck. It's about me returning back into the flow and really just easing up and letting go of all of that contraction and that tension and disharmony and discord that I'm feeling in my body and in my being. And so as I've had these layers of reflection by myself and then from this mentor, dear friend of mine, and having these realizations, I could feel a lightening and a spaciousness opening up. And then this morning in meditation, I had a realization and 2 realizations and images drop into my mind. And the one was about water. And just really having this image of a flowing stream of water and how this water is always in a perpetual state of flow or trying to get into a state of flow and movement. And how whenever it encounters any obstacles, such as a rock or a branch, it doesn't go into resistance or contract or fight against it. It simply flows over or around and envelops this obstacle within its essence, within the water. And in this case, I'm perceiving water to be a metaphor for love and how this water is always flowing back to its source. And then the other image that I had was around animals and specifically pets and my pets in particular, and what beautiful and brilliant teachers they are of this principle. If I think of my pets, whenever I cause them any pain, mostly unintentionally or sometimes intentionally, if I give them a spank, or you'd step on one of their paws, or you simply forget to give them any food, they make it known that their needs are not being met. And they make that known through, they might cry out, they might growl at you, or they might run away. Because in that moment, there was this painful or negative impact on them. But very soon after that moment, they are able to move back into the flow, back into the present moment aliveness. They do not get stuck in judgment. I was just realizing this, and what the dogs or what animals are able to do, what I believe they're able to do, is in that moment of disconnect, they experience the disconnect and the pain and their needs not being met, and at the same time they're able to hold and view me for who and what I truly am. They do not project an enemy image on top of me based on this momentarily disconnect, based on this moment of pain or harm that I caused them. They are able to hold and see me as I truly am. And as those two realizations and images really penetrated and percolated, I was able to, just to become a little bit more expansive, and a little bit more, feel a little bit more spaciousness. And it got me to really think about how we as humans, and how I, in this situation, caused suffering for myself much longer than was needed by resisting moving back and returning back into the flow, by holding on to this judgment. And just, what beautiful teachers our pet friends, our animal friends are. So I thought I'd jump on and share that with you all. I hope you found this helpful and found any nugget in there for yourself. And if there's any experience or insights that you have around judgments and how that lives for you, please feel free to share that. Thank you.